Welcome to the Holy Drive Show. My name is Jimmy Hanks, your host. And tonight we're going to be hosting one of the legendary stand-up, actually they're called stand-up comedians. He has been around for years, actually decades. We're young children. He was doing this game. Even up to now, he's still just the same way he was many years ago. I want to be knowing about the secret behind this man, how he has been able to maintain the legacy that he has built over the years. First, I'll take a small break and I'll be right back with the man himself. We'll be back. Welcome, Mr. Chimuli. I think that's a surprise name.
Thank you for hosting me. Yes.
You're welcome. You can actually people may know about the other names of Chimuli. I knew as Pablo.
Pablo, yeah.
Yes.
Pablo is the nickname, but the real official name that's on my identity card is Kenneth Chimuli.
So Chimuli is
Yes.
a name for a particular region. And it's like you're from a particular so I'm really confused.
Surprisingly, it's a name that cuts across. You'll find it in Busoga, you'll find it in Buganda, you'll find it in Toro, you'll find it in Ankole, and all means the same thing, flower. Yes.
Flower. No wonder you don't
Yes.
age. You're really a flower. You see some names,
Yes.
some names are still a flower,
Yes.
meaning you're everywhere. And indeed, in everyone's house, you're there because people watch you on TV, right?
That's
Yeah, so who is Pablo?
Pablo is a comedian, is Uganda's stand-up premier comedian that was birthed in 2003 when he was working on a radio station, and that's when he was birthed. He started as a radio presenter, and then somehow ventured into comedy. Actually stumbled into it. It wasn't intentional, because his relative, very close relative, Kenneth Chimuli, was a journalist.
Oh.
And so he decided that he was going to, Kenneth Chimuli was covering a story about comedy that was starting, and then the organizers, that was Theatre Factory by Philip Luswata, Kwezi Kaganda, Julius Lugaya, they were the ones championing it. And when Kenneth Chimuli went to cover the story, they ended up casting. And when they were casting, they inadvertently cast Pablo. Yes. So Pablo then started performing with Theatre Factory. And that was as early as 2004, I should say. And come in 2006, there was a radio drama.
Wow.
That came through called Rock Point 256. That was recorded in 5 languages and aired on 13 radio stations. And so Kenneth Chimuli was taken to go and become a scriptwriter for the radio dramas. And so he I could say in a way betrayed Pablo. Because then Pablo was denied an opportunity to perform, because his mentor or his sidekick was busy in the radio drama. But then there are some people who really loved Pablo, like Mr. Andrew Sekajugo, who said, but yes, when they're switching from one skit to another, can't Pablo come in and perform?
Yes.
And so Pablo had a conversation with Kenneth Chimuli, and Kenneth Chimuli said, all right, I can do some research for you and you perform. So all those Thursdays, Pablo would come in and just give highlights of, it was like political commentary or social commentary of the events that had been happening in the week. And with time, people picked interest in the commentary, because they want to say, okay, let's find out what has NSSF done. What does Pablo have to tell us about NSSF? Okay, what's happening in Temangalo? And with time, it became a permanent segment. Then Philip also said, but why do you have to come in every skit moment? Why don't you just put everything together and becomes a skit, a stand-up act? Yeah. And that's how I started stand-up, you know?
Wow.
So Kenneth Chimuli would do the research and then comes and gives the content to Pablo. Pablo does the execution, and then after they share the proceeds.
That is how you found yourself in comedy.
That's how I found myself in comedy.
So, you can share with us that one, I don't know how they call it, like those words that introduce you to the public, like that comedy that you did. Like, who is this young man?
Well, when I used to work on radio,
Yes.
I used to want to hype. You know, when you're working on radio,
Yes.
you're in the studio, you're alone, you're not even aware if there are people listening or not.
Yeah, you're right.
You don't know if they're listening or not. So basically, you need like a hype.
Yes.
So I remember several years ago in 2000, I was going to Namasagali, and I went to the taxi park and sat next to a lady. This lady was so mean, yet a mean died. You know, the lady was. She had a look on her face. You'd think she had been baptized in bitter lemon. And so I greeted the lady, and she didn't respond.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
and then I was like, oh, I think this lady's problems are bigger than life.
I know.
But when we reached a place called Namaojolo where they sell chicken, she saw a relative, I don't know whether it was a relative or friend, and she became so frantic, she got excited, and she started saying, So I loosely translated it to English and it became happiness is killing me. And that's when I realized that happiness can kill somebody.
I know.
A person who was close to dying out of misery is now close to dying out of happiness. So I liked it. Happiness is killing me. So when I went on radio, I'd want to hype myself, you know. And I would remember that lady saying, so that's how I came up with happiness is killing me. This one is calling me. That one is telling me. Happiness. Then I would come in with an intro, which I should say I adopted from Papa San. Papa San is a Jamaican rapper. Yes. We happened to host him on one of the gospel radio stations in Uganda. Yes. And he was speaking patois, you know, the Jamaican English. Yeah, roast the fried rice and Celesta ate it. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Those things. So I realized that why can't I also do my own intro for every morning? So every morning I would come on radio and say, he's the Uganda. This is yours truly, Pablo Bangabe Oko. The only Muchiga from Pakwach, one thing for sure. My mother's son, whether I like it or is really pretty wonderful. It's all about loving, breaking, record on message. Blessed, mega, love it. Yagayo. Now I asked Papa San, what does Yagayo mean? And he told me that it means I have nothing more to say, or it means I have nothing useful to add. So, so it became a way of hyping myself, and that was, and people always, the listener would always wait for that moment at 6 a.m. And then when you check in and you start, it's the Uganda, this is truly Pablo Bangabe Oko, only Muchiga from Pakwach, one thing for my mother's son, then done. And before we knew it, and then there was a song called City Bus. It's a happiness song. Where would I go without you in my life? Where would I be without you? I'll be wandering day by day. So it was. So I used to play it on radio every day, and I called it the happiness moment. Yes. And that's people would call in, just tell us why they are happy. I know. Just tell us why are you happy? Yeah, I'm happy because I paid the landlord. I am happy because my child went to school. I am happy because I am happy. So it became. Those were my most memorable moments.
Wow. Yes. How are you able to merge out of the many and finally become the Pablo that we celebrate today?
I think I should say, one, it was God's grace. I have nothing to do with it. I can't take any credit. It was a path, a divine path that I found myself in theater because by then I was a practicing journalist. I was freelancing with the Daily Monitor, and I was covering theater under the supervision of a lady called Elizabeth Camel, and so she made sure that I covered theater stories. And every time I would go to theater, I would feel, because I had a background of acting. When I went to Shimoni Demonstration School, and
apparently there is kingdom.
Now there is a kingdom. Yeah, the school is deceased. So I even don't know if my papers are okay.
I wonder why you kids, where you showed them where you attended. Yeah,
I showed him a kingdom. He said, "Dad, so you're prince." And so when I was in Shimoni, there was a gentleman called Katurama, I think. He taught us a Magunju dance. But then my parents died, and I started my transition from urban to rural, and I went to a school called Waranyanji boarding primary school.
That's a girls' school.
There's a primary which is mixed. That's the girls.
Your schools
And so
are tricky.
and so I taught them a Magunju dance, and they loved it. And so when I went to theater, the spirits came back. The spirits of theater came back. They were alive. And also when I was in Namasagali, I had acted in some of the plays, and so I felt I had reached home. And so when I was incorporated in Theatre Factory, I easily gelled in, you know, and started performing with them. And then in 2006, one of the TVs came to Uganda from Kenya, and they wanted local content. And they got what we were doing and named it Barbed Wire. It was, I think, the first, arguably the first comedy show to feature on private TVs in Uganda. And then that was the springboard to success.
Wow.
Yes, so people started thronging the National Theatre to come and watch what these guys are doing, and it was also very taxing, you know, because people want new things. You know, in comedy, a joke twice is never as funny.
I know. Becomes
So
normal.
yeah, so we had to work hard, and then fast forward to 2009 when we had Stand Up Uganda by MultiChoice. They came to Uganda and they were looking for the funniest person, set up a competition, called it Stand Up Uganda, and by God's grace I was able to win that competition, which for me was the birth of my show, Pablo Live, which now, starting next year, we're adding something to it. It's called the Variety Show, Pablo Live Variety Show. Yeah, so we shall be showcasing not only comedy but also other forms of art.
Wow.
That appeal to the audience.
Wow. So Pablo, how do people get those words those words you speak in comedy? Where do those words come from?
We research.
You research.
Yeah, you see, comedy is a funny way of being serious, and you have to invest time and research. You have to read. You have to find out what's happening, current affairs, what's happening in the American race. What is Kamala doing? Who are eating pets? You know. Are they still in Springfield, Ohio? How do we bring that close to home?
Wow.
You know, you have to ask yourself very many questions. What's happening in Uganda? I mean, who has been fired? Who has been hired? Who has been chased? Who's being chased? So it's about research, then also about observation. You have to observe and see what's happening around you. What are people saying? You know, you listen to what they're saying, and then you also have to ask questions. You know, because you want to be authentic and you also want to be truthful, because you don't want to be a vessel of false information. Yes.
Wow. So Pablo.
Yes.
Our dear viewer, this is the man called Pablo. Yagayo.
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 Yagayo, that's a Jamaican word.
So Yagayo.
Yes.
How did you finally meet Christ? In the midst of all these things, how did you finally meet Christ?
I think I met Christ before I came to theatre.
I had the bond with him before.
Yeah, I met Christ in early 2003 in Feb, and I think it was Feb. The only thing I remember, it was when Gaetano had just been evicted from Big Brother Africa. I think it was the first ever Big Brother, and we were very disappointed. I and my friends, we went to a bar in Ntinda. It was called If Not, Why Not?
If not, why not?
Yes. And we're like, well, if he didn't win, why didn't he win? and because we thought he was going to bring the money home, so we went to If Not, Why Not? Why Not? And we drank lots of beer, and then we crossed over to a place in Ntinda that was called The Deep. Yes, yes. And at that point, my friends left me, but I realized I was sober. So I went back home, and I remember that time there was, I don't know if it was called Africa TV, or I know it was Lighthouse TV, and they were showing Joyce Meyer.
That was LTV.
Yes, and Joyce Meyer was talking about people who have, you know, you've drunk, you've done everything. What are you doing? You need to come back to Christ.
Wow.
And I figured that this lady was saying something important. So the following day, I crossed over I used to stay near Watoto, Chisasi. By then it was called KPC. And then I crossed over, that Sunday I went to KPC, and Pastor Joshua, well, was saying, "Women want to give their lives to Christ after preaching." Yeah, I said, but yesterday I had a conversation with Joyce and Mayo. They said those want. They said that there was even a baptism. They're saying there are those who want to be baptized in the water by immersion. I also registered. Hey, then I think I went for a class or two, and then that's how I found myself.
Wow.
In being a Christ ambassador.
So how are you able to balance that? Because I'm looking at you being in an environment whereby most of your friends are not maybe into that line. So how did you finally live with them without you compromising, you know?
I think it's a choice. It's a choice. You know, one of the things I never want to do is to judge. I never want to judge, because you don't know what people are going through. You don't know how they were raised. You don't know their challenges. You don't know their fears. And you don't know why they do the things they do. So, at the risk of being God's assistant, the best you can do is maybe pray for them and guide them where you feel, or listen to them. I think the best I can do is listen to them, because I believe listening is therapeutic. You know, when it's they say it's 60% of communication, but then also it's a choice I made, because I believe that there are more jokes above the belt than under the belt.
Wow.
I mean, life. If Uganda is a roller coaster of stories.
Yes.
When you look at Uganda itself, just get a newspaper. After 96 hours, a new story has come up.
True.
You know, I mean, what was the big story last week? The big story. If I ask you the big story last week, you'll even be lucky to remember, because guys have now moved on. They're talking about who has been fired in KCCA.
You know.
Now, just give it 48 hours, something else will have come up. So, if you are a person who pays attention to current affairs, you'll be our papers alone have fodder for content. You know, TikTok has a lot of content. So I believe that obscene jokes and vulgarity is a sign of laziness.
Wow. And
subscribing to it means you haven't invested in research and finding out what is it that makes people laugh, makes them think, and not offensive.
Wow, that's so key. I think our friends are learning from you. So, Mr. Pablo,
yes,
how has God been part of it? How have you found this journey of working with Christ?
I think Christ is an anchor. You know, there's no ship that will dock and there's no anchor. You know, and I think, like he says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and the rest will follow. I think that's the most important thing. First of all, you should know that you qualify to sin.
Yeah, true.
And you will most definitely sin. You will definitely fall. As long as you were born of woman, you'll definitely fall. Let it be in thought, speech, or action, in one way or another. So you don't act superhuman.
True.
Yeah, and that's why he says that when you fall, you rise. And he says you can do it 70 times, 70 times. But that doesn't mean that then you'll do something wrong knowingly, you know.
Yes.
And temptation is not sin. I mean, if you're tempted, it's something that is trying to take you close.
True.
So it's the choice you make is what decides whether it is sin or you have run away from it.
Wow, that's very true.
Yeah.
The choice you make, yes.
The choice you make. So, if you see a cliffhanger, why do you go to it? You know you're going to fall. Take the opposite direction if there's a way out. And for me, I also, the fact that I don't know when I'm going to die is a manifestation that we are dealing with a God who has to decide for us everything.
True.
And as such, when you wake up, you pay attention to the call of prayer without ceasing. And what does that mean? Praying without ceasing doesn't mean that you go and shander in a corner like for 6 hours, then you go. You know, you go, no. Praying without ceasing is having a conversation with God at every moment.
Wow.
You wake up in the morning, oh, thank you God for the great night's sleep. I'm forever grateful, and as I step out of this place, take the wheel as I drive.
Wow.
As you're driving, you say, oh Lord, as you can see, the traffic is too much. Can you make a way where there seems to be no way? You'll see a kid, a street kid. Father, may your grace be upon that child so that they can have lunch today, or could you grant them a way to get out of the street? You know, you see a taxi man slapping a passenger. You say, Father, may you grant all those people some peace.
Yeah,
so that is what they call praying without ceasing, having a constant conversation with God.
Wow.
You're going to come for this show, say, God, can I say the right things in the right way,
Yes,
so that the
true.
viewer can also find a way of knowing you much better through me.
That's very true.
Yes.
As we wind up the show, Pablo,
Yes.
how would you want the world to remember you?
That's a very good question. You know, it's not how I want them to remember me. Because you've met different people, you've rubbed them either the wrong way or the right way. I want them to remember me as here as a person who lived his life to the full and found his purpose and lived up to it.
Wow.
I think it's that.
We can echo that. That's very cool.
Yeah, they say here lies a man who lived his life to the full, found his purpose and executed it.
Wow.
I think for me that would be ideal.
Wow. And you said the beauty with these shows, even after 100 years, I was
Yes.
telling one of the guests that I had that they will be there. Your children will come back and watch these videos. So,
Absolutely.
And someone will say, yeah, that man lived his word.
Yeah.
So I pray that you can lift your word. at the end of the
Absolutely.
day.
You can even have like 20 more minutes.
Yes. So Pablo, if today was your last day,
Yeah.
do you feel like but before I come to that, how have you been able to contribute to the comedy industry of Uganda positively?
I believe in mentorship
Yes.
because you have to set the right precedence. If God has given you the grace to be the premier stand-up comedian, what have you done with it? So we started what we call the comedy clinic, where we mentored people into comedy, and then we later graduated into creating a foundation called Tebere Arts Foundation, which helps emerging artists find their path into the industry. And so we do a number of things there. We have intensive labs where we mentor theatre practitioners. We have what we call the mid-career and established playwrights residence, where we empower writers. We have annual productions. And then we have the Kampala International Theatre Festival, where we create space for other international partners to come in and exhibit their works, so that our homegrown talent can have an opportunity to see what other people are doing elsewhere in the world. There's a lot we do as Tebere. More of that can be found on www.tebere.org, and the number of the things that we do to equip artists, not only just for comedy, but also for writing, for film, for makeup, for scenography, for stage management, directing. All those are in there.
So that's how you're impacting your community positively.
Yes. In terms of passing on the baton
To the next
generation who are interested in the arts.
I would love to know now in the line of God, serving God. Because at the end of the day, life makes more meaning as a Christian. When there's something you're doing that is worth to be celebrated about you, that line.
Well, in terms of comedy, I purpose to keep it clean.
Wow.
Yeah? Keep the humor clean, such that there's no parental guidance needed when you're performing. And make sure that whatever you're saying is pure, lovable, and just in the eyes of God. But also importantly, I should say, I was privileged to write a number of plays for the then Kampala Pentecostal Church drama team, which later became drama. I was privileged to write some plays for them. I remember I wrote Madness is Coming.
Madness is Coming.
Yeah, I wrote Kiss No More and One Night Stand. And so those were plays which were performed at the National Theatre, and we were able to see a number of people give their lives to Christ. I was also privileged to act in Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames, and also in the Christmas cantatas of Watoto. But now we're also passing the baton to others. It's important to let other people also get the opportunity to perform.
Wow.
Yes.
What are some of the things that the Lord has done for you? When you look back, really say, it's been by the grace.
I think God has given me grace. For me, it's grace above all. Yes, because there are things that if the world opened your closet and saw the skeletons in there, they would hate you.
I know.
Yeah, but it's only grace. It's until grace finds you that you're able to appreciate what God has done for you. I can say He has taken me to places I would have never gone. He has introduced me to people that I wouldn't have met in ordinary circumstances. He has given me opportunities to perform in places that I wouldn't have performed on ordinary
You've traveled
basis.
to nations.
Yes, travel, and then also again, He gives you family. He gives you people that He gives you an opportunity to raise people in a way and guides you on how to raise them. So I always tell people that I always go to church for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is what takes me to church. And the Bible is very clear. It says give thanks when you make your supplications in the visions. Make your requests known to God, but the most important thing is with thanksgiving. A cheerful giver. The Lord loves a cheerful heart. So it's all about giving thanks. Once you give, when you have a child and that child keeps saying thank you daddy, when you give them something, he says good morning daddy, how are you, did you sleep well, I'm glad you woke up. So but if you're giving a kid who just takes away and never gives thanks, you don't pay attention to that child.
True.
Yeah, you always, so it's important to give thanks. Now thanksgiving is not necessarily money. Yeah, thanksgiving could be talking to God. Thanksgiving could be getting a cluster of bananas and giving it to your neighbor who hasn't eaten.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it's getting a sugar cane and sharing it with your friends. Whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me.
Yes.
That's what Jesus says. So that is all thanksgiving. But most times people think thanksgiving is about money. No, you can give time, help somebody do something, you know. And Ugandans have a culture of thanksgiving, and that's why we were declared, I think in 2018, the happiest country in Africa. Reason being, our hearts, we are cheerful givers. There are very few countries where you'll find wedding meetings.
You're right.
People are giving. Funerals. Your workmate has lost an auntie. Somehow people are collecting good condolences. Then they say that there's a van going to bury, put me on the list. You don't know the person, but you go and bury somebody you don't know, you've never seen. But it's out of gratitude, love. So life is all about love. They say it's faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of all is love.
Wow. So, Mr. Pablo, how do you plan to spend the rest of your life? I believe now you're in the second decade of your life, right?
I'm on the fourth floor.
Sorry, on the fourth floor. Sorry.
I'm waiting. I'm so close, by the way, to the fifth floor.
You know?
I'm just so close. Just so close.
But you don't even look old. You look young. How do you maintain it?
Laugh a lot. Just be cheerful. Be happy. Not wrong. If you feel like happiness in the room, it's all about being, it takes less muscles to smile than to frown.
I know.
And so it's important to be happy.
Yes.
You know, this world we came in, we shall leave it.
I know.
Yeah?
Empty-handed.
Yes. So why do you make life hard? Why do you make life hard for others?
Ask them why.
So by the way, if you find a person who's always argumentative, whatever they say, agree with them. That's the only way to stop them. If he tells you that your glasses are pink,
Maybe you're right. Yes.
you say, yeah, they are pink.
Okay.
He says, are you sure they are pink? He said, yeah, that's what you said, they are pink. What else will he say?
I know.
You have agreed with him. You think they are brown, but so in life, some people take life so seriously as if they'll get out of it alive. No. If you have something, share, care. Yeah.
You keep your peace.
Carry.
So how are you spending your remaining life?
I don't know how much time I have. I'm not even sure about tomorrow.
I know.
So what I do,
If you have an opportunity to leave, yes.
I think about now. I plan for the future, but I pay more attention to now. You know, yes, you will invest, but if I'm hungry now and I have 10,000 shillings in my pocket and I'm thinking of buying Tadova or something, that thing will have to wait because I'm not going to starve because there's no bulb at home.